Welcome back. This is the CADy Shack podcast episode running out of fingers. 10, number 11. So uh super excited. Had a long break over the holidays. We're kicking off 2024. This is the first episode. We have an awesome packed agenda and exciting guests to share with everyone. But first and foremost, lots has changed. New year, new AWS reorg. There's a bunch of fun stuff. Marlos, I'll hand the ball off to you. Do what you do best, like give an update on kind of what's happened at AWS and what's going on with CADy Shack and awesome partners.
Absolutely. Thanks, Michael. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We love having you guys on board. We have a special guest today. Before we get on to our special guest, who will do his own introduction, let's get started with some AWS and awesome partners things. And yes, I do know that there is a filter on my eyebrows. For some reason, it will not come off. So anyway, no matter what I do, it won't come off. But anyway, so CADy Shack right here. We're at 500 members. We will hit 800 by the beginning of Q2. And we have started off a series called Fireside Chats, which we do every year from March to August. First guest March 4th. So join, be a member, get to have access to that. Awesome Partners is also kicking off many events in the next year. So we've started our events process. We have 5 for the year. The next one's going to be in Austin on March 8th. So please feel free to join. It's the South by Southwest event called the CADy Shack South event number 3. We expect over 100 people to join and have drinks and eat barbecue in downtown Austin on that date. And the last thing I want to talk about is just the quick Master CAD program. We are certifying Master CADs, which Allen, our guest today, has gone through the initial class. It's 8 hours of brutal honesty and awesomeness about AWS partnership, not from AWS's point of view, but from the 500 members that are part of CADy Shack and what they found to be the best tips and tricks, or what Michael likes to say, the dark arts of partnering with AWS to be more strategic faster. And that's my update.
Yeah, so just to kick it off, Alan, awesome to have you today. I know you have a pretty extensive background working with AWS, working for AWS. Introduce yourself and maybe tell us a little bit about that background.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. And Barlis, now I can't stop looking at your eyebrows. They're just there and omnipresent. That is something. That is something. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I'm based in Seattle. I've been at Zendesk for 2 years. Over the last couple decades, I've run the gamut of tech companies. I spent around 11 years at Microsoft. I like to say I had 7 good years at Microsoft, and then it took me a while to figure out that it was time for me to move on. I went over to AWS, like any good Seattle resident, spent 2.5 years in the partner org there. And that's really when that was my first introduction to AWS and how they do business. Had really good time over there. Exited and went to a number of other companies, including Okta, a startup. I was at Siemens for a bit. And now here I am at Zendesk. I'm the Senior Director of Strategic Alliances, looking after the AWS Alliance worldwide.
Amazing. I think people know at Zendesk, we're a customer of Zendesk, but what do they do? And, maybe where they're built and, why it matters to partner with AWS.
Sure. So Zendesk is, if you think about it very simply, is customer service software. The way I like to put it to AWS people is that we help our customers take care of their customers. And that resonates, of course, because of the customer obsession over at Amazon. We're a SaaS application, 100% built on AWS. There's no on-prem, there's no Google version, there's no Azure version. We've been built on AWS for years and years, and we're very, very good at building on AWS. So we use well over 100 services of AWS. We use managed services when we can. We use open source as well when applicable. We feel really good about our architecture with AWS. We work very closely with their customer SAs and with their partner SAs, and the two functions, of course, are very different. We navigate AWS fairly well and have good links into the service teams we need to, as well as the partner org. So, part of my job is to make sure that we're navigating AWS both from an engineering perspective and from a selling perspective, such that we can transition from building on AWS to building with AWS and selling software and services built on AWS to figuring out how to sell effectively with AWS.
Yep, makes perfect sense. Actually, I'll pick up something you said because, again, you went from Microsoft to AWS and then your foray at Okta, which is now you're partnering with the company you just came from. If you had a couple lessons learned or tips and tricks that you picked up then, and then we can roll it into like how are you applying those same concepts today, or have you evolved them a little bit?
So what I've learned along the way is many things, right? When I look at strategic alliances, I think along 4 pillars. I think around go-to-market alignment, go-to-market alignment, product alignment, executive alignment, and then partner alignment. And by partner, I mean partner partners. And the most important one there is to me is product, right? To make sure that you have alignment on the product, because if you have alignment on product, then the executives have something to talk about, sales has something to sell, partners have something to deploy. And if you don't have a plan for all 4 of those pillars, then you probably don't have a strategic alliance, and that's okay, but just call it what it is. If you're just focused on go-to-market alignment, then you have a sales alliance, and that's okay. You can go through channel, or you can figure out how to co-sell. You can do lots of great things, but it's not until what I found in my experience is that I have a plan for all 4 of those pillars, and at least trending towards green and figuring out, what are we going to do to make sure that we're talking with the right people in the service team about this. What are we going to do, at our next executive touch point between AWS executive A and my executive B, that we're going to be moving this forward. How are we going to have our co-sell interlinked with what we're doing on product? So that's probably excuse me, the biggest thing. Then the next one is when I read Barlos's post on, it's not all about AOs. That's when I knew I would probably like him, because that is absolutely not our focus, right? And when I look at new jobs, that's how I qualify them is, where does this role report into, and what is the measure of success, right? Because if the purpose of the alliance is solely, how much business is AWS going to bring us, that is not what they're good at, right? So it's, and that's not a fair measure of the alliance.
Can I stop you just right there real fast? Just because I don't want to get too far into it. Something that you said, I want more people to hear about, which is who you report up to, because it's not that it's ridiculously out of the realm, but I think I particularly like your reporting structure better than almost any other CADs. Can you give us a description of that before we go on? Just because I think it's so unusual, not unusual, but so much different.
Yeah. So when I was hired, I rolled up into the COO, which who reported to the CEO. We've since had a few reorgs, and my SVP's been elevated, so he reports directly to the CEO. So I report up into the SVP of Corp Dev and Alliances. So Tech Alliances, which is all the ISV partners that Zendesk manages, and that's, let's call it 1,800-ish. AWS is one of them, and I have a team looking specifically after AWS. But we roll up into Tech Alliances. Channel Partners rolls into sales, but Tech Alliances doesn't. And I like that structure because it gives us more leniency or more time to have a longer term view, right? So while revenue is important and impact to revenue is important, and it is the point, it's not the only thing that's important with measuring an AWS relationship. A relationship with AWS is different than our other partnerships because it's not one we're going to walk away from. We are committed to building on AWS. That's not going to change. Whereas maybe if you're measuring a channel partner and their sourced revenue is not healthy, then you can walk away from that partnership. We're not walking away from AWS. We want to figure out how to keep making it better and a better relationship for both parties.
Yeah, I think it's funny, even if your reporting structure is somewhere else, I think the CADs that tend to do this pretty well have a plan, much like you said. It's a pretty balanced 4-pillar plan, and you have to consider all of those. And so for me, I always think of it like, yeah, I might report up to sales or the CRO, and I certainly care about that. I know my income is dependent on it, but what you're talking about is business development, kind of the entrepreneurial effect of like having your arm in a lot of different parts of the business, and you're trying to optimize this partnership for the business success, right? Especially since you're built on it, and it's also kind of a route to market and partner and all that stuff. So you said that very well, and I agree, and I think it's probably good feedback for everyone. Even if you're reporting to somewhere else, keep in mind to be successful, you can't just try to drive AOs and like only be good at the revenue side. And actually, you have to be a complete partner because that's how AWS is evaluating you. So I think you actually said that, and I'll ask you that question, which is, how is AWS evaluating you? Like, what do you, how do you feel about the partner plan, or what, these interactions? How do you see that they're, you're growing with them?
So there's the things that are from a AWS partner organization perspective, the metrics that are important to them aren't that important to us. So
Yeah.
that is the number of deals we put into ACE, the the amount that we put through marketplace, although don't get me wrong, we're committed to marketplace, but there's numbers that are very important to them, and we just understand what those are, and we need to put enough in so we show up on their dashboards. Got it. We then went through a long and torturous journey of trying to figure out, just how much to put in there. And I'm happy to speak fairly frankly about that, because we have tremendous deal volume at Zendesk. We have hundreds of thousands of opportunities a year, and we put a small percentage of those into ACE for lots of really good reasons.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest reason is the amount of work we would have to do with the fallout of putting them in, because we get around 3 to 5 emails back from AWS for every op we put in. So it's just, if I put in 100,000 ops, then I'm getting 300,000 emails, of which most of them are extremely low value. So what we ended up doing was we would work with the ISM organization really closely in order to figure out which accounts had the most likelihood to be successful in co-selling. And then we would only put those into ACE one by one by one. Okay, so your question was, how does AWS measure us? Of course, they measure us based on ACE pipeline, which I think is a bit of a silly measure, but hey, they get to do it. Because a better measure to me is our actual AWS account, like how much consumption is Zendesk driving, since we're all in on AWS, and they see how much we pay them. So, I'm sure they look at that too, but the partner team really focuses on ACE. So if I were disingenuous, I could dump as much into ACE as I want and be partner of the year, but that's not exactly the game we're playing here.
Yeah, it's also, you're right. If you're going to do a bad job with the pipeline, it's almost better not doing it, right? So I think the
And
selection criteria you did, and also when you talk about consumption and all of that, that does play a role too. And when you're building on, that plays a role too. I think all of them do, and you kind of covered that in the beginning. So I, Carlos, I know you're going to ask a question.
I know the answer, but I don't know how much you want to share, Ellen. But on CRM connectors, did you want to? Let me ask you this question: if there was a perfect mousetrap that back and forth prioritizes the correct emails and puts that into your CRM system, would that increase your consumption if it was made easy? I know that the current AWS CRM connector has a lot of work that needs to be done to it, and even the ones that you can pay for, whether it be Sugar or Workspan, Tackle, all of the rest, they all take a certain amount of work, and there still needs to be some AI component, like you're saying. You get 5 or 6 emails back and forth, and maybe one might be relevant. If there was that, would that be something that Zendesk would be like, oh, okay, let's put all of our deals in, or is that just no?
So we do have the automation connected to Salesforce and ACE. It is adequate. It does an adequate job. I wouldn't say it does a great job. It's fine. We're going to work on making that better, and with that, we may have the opportunity to put more into Ace. Some of it, we also have to work with AWS to understand what's in it for us to put more deals in Ace. We know what's in it for AWS. They would love to have greater visibility into our pipeline. You know, and if you look at it across 50,000 ISVs, they would love to have us put it all in there, but we don't necessarily see that that's of great value to us. So we are open to being a great partner of AWS. We think we're a great partner of AWS, and when we are collaborating with them, we'll put it in every single time, and we'll even put more of our pipeline in than just the deals we're working on. But we have found that if we put too much in, it also creates bad behavior from AWS sellers in that they can get a little lazy. And then there's expectations of like, oh, so we heard there's a renewal. Did you put it in? Did you put this in? And then we're like, oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Mark. Maybe we need to talk about what we need. And we can use that with our sellers to talk about, look, we're happy to put in our next 5 opportunities we're working on with this customer, but here's what we need in collaboration. And as we build trust with the AWS sellers, then it becomes a more natural process.
I guess the reality is when they
I
hear
love that
about a
you said
renewal
that.
coming up, they send you an AO anyway. So you must be seeing a lot of that. Now, we know there's not a lot of value in the renewal AO, but I suspect you're seeing a lot of those, right? Because they
Yeah, so
know that the customer is going to ask them, hey, I got this Zendesk, renewal coming up. It happens.
So we have over 160,000 customers, and all of them are on AWS.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of what we call garbage AOs, which are renewals we already know of. We deny them. We deny them every single time. So
Interesting.
we shut it down. At first we thought, well, hey, we can make friends. Why not just do that? But it was the wrong decision because it created more bad behavior, and the word got out. Hey, if you can find Zendesk deals, just put the AOs. They're going to approve them. They're going to launch it, and you just made some easy money. And when AWS put in the 7x spiff for AOs, we got flooded.
Yeah.
And it was, so we escalated it internally at AWS, said we're getting crushed here, and it's all of zero value. So we just shut it down. We denied them all. We closed them all one day. And when we closed them all one day, then we heard AWS yell a little bit. It's like, what'd you do? It's like, okay, AOs are only for net new opportunities for Zendesk. That's it. A renewal by definition cannot be net new. It's a renewal. We knew. So then we just got very militant about that. And since we've done that, it's gotten better. And I'm fine if we're down to 0 AOs, actually 0, because I want them to be real.
This is an awesome conversation. As a follow-up, do you feel that there's been any negative consequences for that decision and the way you guys practice, or do you feel that? Yeah, I'll pull it more, but let me just ask that question.
We made some people very angry. They were.
Yeah, I bet.
They
it was
were
a very ballsy move.
I was gonna say I would never do that, but
they were
hats
not
off to you, sir.
I don't know. But we had support of the AWS executives. So Rachel Scaff supported us.
Oh, she hates the dumb AOs. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had that, and that helped. And same in other parts of the world. So we said, look, this isn't, and it was really crushing us. The volume was, because we had to check every single one to make sure it wasn't real. And well, 98% of them weren't real. You still have to check everyone. So it just, we had to shut it down. So I'm glad we did it. It was the right move. And now maybe the word's out that we were worried the word might be out like, oh, Zendesk is so hard to work with. But you know what? There we are. It's okay.
Yeah. But I can say that this. So you know how you said this is something that you said that was very important that I'm going to use later, but you said that AWS is a partner that you're going to stay with. It's not like, okay, if the partnership isn't quite working out, you're still going to stick with it and you're just going to try and make it better. And I think Zendesk also has that ability. You guys are so large, have so much market share, and have been run so well that it's not like companies that are already using you guys are really leaving in droves or plan to leave. So I think that there is a caveat here that This will work very well for Allen Clark and Zendesk, but like the average startup that has no name and has no customers, it might not be the best thing to do with AWS. But Zendesk is so awesome that AWS is like, all right, let's not piss Zendesk off. Let's give them real AOs or nothing at all. So that works out well. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I've been at that startup, right, where you've got to get on the board somehow. So, and so I hear you. We're in a position that's different,
Hmm?
we have tremendous deal volume, like I said. So I can put as much in days. I mean, I could flood days. I could put in literally, 50,000 ops
Thousands.
a quarter, and they'd all be real. But we're not going to do that. Now, when you're a startup, you're just looking to get noticed, and you'll take those AOs. I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's why it's an interesting conversation. And, I think a lot of what we try to have our listeners and why we have guests on like yourself is everyone's got a different situation. They started from a different place. And, you're in a massive ISV, but you've been built on AWS. So like you drive AWS consumption, you're using AWS services, could have worked, go back to the Okta stuff again also, but like, um, you could have been at a company that's grown through acquisition and has like 10 businesses and two of them are on AWS and one of them's somewhere else. And, it was an on-prem software, like that's a very different situation. The leaders come from a different place. You could be owned by VC, owned by public equity, PE, like totally different vectors. So I think understanding the choices you made, but why and how you made them, I think that helps someone else out in the audience too. So that's why I think these are awesome. I'm agree in the beginning, like just be thankful you got a crappy AO because the truth is like you do need maybe you forgot you need some kind of stats. You mentioned a leaderboard, it does exist. You can't be on it if you got nothing on it. So it is hard in the beginning. I think, you coming from AWS, you probably saw a lot of this too. You were in the partner org, you were helping partners, um, but you're in a very different position now where you're right. I need some strategic help. I don't need a bunch of time sucking, false positives about my renewals.
And
Yes,
two
agreed.
two things. Um, so you talked about being all in on AWS with Zendesk. One of the most popular questions that I get, I don't know about you, Michael, but one of the most popular questions I get on a regular basis from startups is, look, they're like, look, we want to do all three clouds. We want to do AWS, we want to do Microsoft, we want to do Google, we want to do each one equally and then see what happens. And I always tell them, not only because, I'm in CADy Shack, the largest AWS partner group in the world, but also I believe this, that AWS has the largest market share, and let's do what we can with the biggest. And then once you feel confident that you're kind of taken over, then go to the next. What would you say to a CEO who's listening to this right now that's like, what is the benefit of being all in on AWS? Can you give that?
So I think it depends on the type of application you're running, right? Like, so for a multi-tenant SaaS app, I see no benefit in being on another cloud. That's an engineering nightmare, because what Azure's good at is different than AWS is good at, and it's not easily portable. So then you're developing to the least common denominator, whatever the heck that means, and you end up with two separate code bases with no customer benefit. I don't understand why anyone would do that.
I'll
But
tell
if
you
you
after you answer.
Okay. But if you look at workloads like a Snowflake, like it totally make or an SAP, like it totally makes sense to the customer to store their data where they want. That I understand. And it's been fun to watch Snowflake, Databricks, whomever, take the best, look after their customer, use that as currency to try to get into a better position. I mean, when Databricks went to Azure and became a first party service, I was like, okay, nice. Well done. And
Yeah.
that makes AWS sit up and take notice. But that's not the play here at Zendesk. Like we are,
Yeah.
AWS friends listening, we are not moving from AWS. We are not, if anyone even suggested that we were gonna move to Azure, our engineering team would just be like, no, are you nuts? That is not
Mm.
happening.
Yeah. I guess my question for you, and if I was talking to your executives, this may not be the case, which is, you said you're committed. You guys sell some AWS marketplace deals. Does that mean that no customers have ever wanted to buy you from Google or Azure Marketplace? Or has that not been a deal breaker in any situation?
That has not been a deal breaker in any situation.
Yeah.
So we are a strong direct selling company.
Yeah.
We have a decent channel business as well. We are seeing triple digit growth on AWS Marketplace, and we are committed to AWS Marketplace.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't come up
Yeah.
for Azure Marketplace, Google Marketplace, and
No.
maybe it came up once, and we said, oh, we're not present there.
Yeah. The second is, do you compete with any native AWS service?
You got my second question that I was going to get out. Of course they compete.
Yeah.
So I would say not really.
Yeah.
We every now and then we may compete by accident around an Amazon Connect deal. So
Yeah.
you have to remember that Zendesk is we make customer service software. We're over here, and
Yeah.
in some ways we fit into business applications, which is a weird thing that AWS has, and they kind of don't know what to do with us, right? So it makes co-selling harder because we're not Splunk or Snowflake or
Yeah.
Datadog or where they know what to do with this thing.
Yeah.
But on the same line, that's a positive because we're out there talking to people like customers that AWS generally isn't talking to, whether it's the VP of customer support or churn or retention or service or marketing or whatever. That's our bread and butter, and AWS is firmly up that IT stack. So when we co-sell intelligently together, it works really well. Sometimes we might compete with an Amazon Connect deal, but
Yeah.
when that happens, the first thing I ask my team is, did you talk to AWS? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, we're competing with AWS on a Connect. Yeah, we lost the deal to Connect. I'm like, okay, step back. Did you talk to AWS? Well, no, we were competing with them. I'm like, hold on. So the AWS doesn't want to compete with us on Connect deals. On Connect, they just care about consumption, right? So if we have a great Connect integration. So if in the RFP, we pushed our Connect integration, we aligned with the AWS team, we cleared all that. So their response also supported our position. 99% of the time, we can clear up that competition in stage 2.
Yep.
So it's just about educating our sellers and having the conversation with AWS earlier.
Great
So
answer. Yeah.
That
By the way,
was
the questions
great
I
answer.
asked, and I could ask 4 or 5 more questions, those are usually the reasons why, like in our position, I also know, right? We have a significant Series D investment by Google Ventures.
Hmm.
Guess where our second cloud ended up, right? Like things like that will happen. Also, like you said, the first party services, different clouds build their own services, and sometimes you can become that OEM, that first party service in one cloud and not the other. But the only way you're going to do that is if you're running their consumption, right? I mentioned marketplace. The answer was in the question, which is, hey, look, Google expects you to be 100%. Really, it's not, but they expect you to be 100% built on Google Cloud. Microsoft calls it 51%. But the point is like you got to be running consumption there in order to get the benefits of transacting in their marketplaces. And for me, I've always looked at the marketplace as that fulfillment. Like I'm the merchant. I want to be able to say, yes, I accept cash and Visa and Amex and hell, Discover too. Like if you want our stuff, I'm happy to sell it to you. But at your scale and your business, like again, like if it's never been a problem, but I do agree, it's complicated. The clouds are not the same. The services don't translate unless, yes, correct, you're only building your service on a compute instance and everything's non-managed. Yeah, you can kind of lift and shift this stuff around, but it's really hard and really expensive supportability. But there are things like data localization and other considerations that could come into play. But yeah, I agree. Like that's just business. I mean, that's the BD stuff you're talking about and talking with your infrastructure team and all of that. It's not a sales decision. It's certainly a business decision. Neat. Barlos, anything else? I was going to switch topics.
I got something really quick. So that's what I was going to talk about was the Connect, and 2 things. One, and Lacework, I'm sure deals with this as well. When I was at AWS, I don't know if you know this, Al, but my first couple of months, I started off in sales. So I was a focused account manager because they didn't have any ISMs in the focused team. And then when they did, I switched over there. But when I was there, one of the things that I noticed was that AWS account managers a lot of times don't have the time to differentiate between different partners and what they do and their products. So if you said, all right, I'm going to do, this security partner or CrowdStrike, to an account manager, they all sound like security. Oh, they all do the same thing. So I'll just bring this security company in, put it up against this security company, and then I'll also sell them, Security Hub or Macy or whatever, because security sounds like security. So when you say customer service to an account manager, like, oh, connect, because the connect reps on the inside are constantly like connect. Let me talk about connect. And it's been connect such a conversation inside AWS that it's like, if you hear the word customer service, doesn't matter what it is, bring in connect. So I do agree with you that even though your service works with connect, it's also something awesome to instruct account managers on how it works well together, which is why having someone like you yourself is so awesome. What I tell customers or CADs that come to me and ask me questions about Google, Microsoft, or AWS is where they should start is usually, like, I'll tell them, like I was saying before, go on to AWS. AWS has the largest market share. Once you're a big deal on AWS, Google and Azure will throw themselves at you saying, hey, we see you got a lot of business on AWS. Why don't you come on over here and we'll make you a great partner? Just come on, bring over some of that consumption, as opposed to if you start off at Azure or Google and you're built on AWS, but you're trying to build something from the very beginning on Azure or Google, they're going to make you jump through a lot of steps. Like at one point, not anymore, but one point Google was like, either spend 500,000 or 10 million with us, one of the two, to get to the next level. I know it's not that now, but that's why I always agree to play with AWS. So that's a little message for all of the CEOs, so they don't call me about the same question later on. Michael, what's your next step that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, we started doing the Master CAD Academy, and Alan, it sounds like you were part of the session and you are a Master CAD now. I think it's a good topic. Like, how was that for you? Maybe a couple positive, great things, maybe a couple, like, honestly, this is open forum. So what could we do better, different for someone like yourself?
Absolutely. What can we do better?
So I thought it was good, and I'm happy I went. It was I love that it was run without AWS in the room. That was smart and useful. And still nice to take advantage of their building, etc. Having people to talk. I already know a bunch of peers because having come out of Microsoft and Amazon, I've had people rotate through. So I've got friends that I have doing the same type of job that I could bounce ideas off, but having a more formal organization to go to, I think is really good. So overall, a positive experience. I think for somebody just starting out in this, like if somebody got dropped into it and they're like, I don't have any idea what to do, that would be very useful. I still found it useful. Like, I certainly don't know everything, and I'm always open to learning a new way. Every now and then, because I've been at it for 10 years, I get a bit ingrained, and I have to remind myself that things might have changed. What if I used to think this and now it's finally shifted, and now it's not like that anymore. So, it took us. You talk about the reorg at Amazon. I call it the snow globe. Every January, it's like, shake it up.
Shake.
And
Yep.
it's all got to settle, and now we're verticals, and we'll see where we go next year. But it's good to have some people to talk to about these things that have informed opinions.
Yeah. What second question, like what was missing for you? You do have a unique set of experience, so you're an advanced partner manager. Like what else could we have offered? What was missing for you that probably could use improvement?
I don't know. Maybe probably more case studies on what's worked and why it's worked.
Yeah.
you know, and maybe more voice of success or failure. Like we tried this and it bombed, or we tried this and it succeeded. And then the international flavor, right? Like
Yeah.
we run a global business, and we're very focused right now in the US and Western Europe, but of course we have a strong business in LATAM, we have a strong business in Asia. In our alliance team, we're run thin. What is the differences in the AWS organization across them? We do very well with AWS through Western Europe, very well, and we struggle a bit in Asia. So figuring out that organization as well.
Yeah. Was there a particular topic that was like, wow, I didn't know that, or that was really useful or impactful?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
The stuff around co-selling is always the most interesting. So, what has worked in co-selling? We spend a lot of time thinking about that. So I'm interested in hearing other people's experiences.
Yeah. No, it's great. Great feedback. Um, Barlos, any other thoughts or feedback that you wanted about that?
No, I think that's pretty good. Although I know we're coming to the last portion of our time, so we don't make people feel bad about listening to us so much. I would usually we ask this question, which we didn't. I'd like to find out a couple of things. One, if you could have any car in the world, this is an icebreaker, but I still like to have all of these questions answered and every one of these. If no money was no object, what kind of car would you have? And number two, if we played your most played lists right now from your phone on iTunes, what song would you be most embarrassed by?
Hmm. The car, not a car guy. I
Okay,
moved.
okay. If you're not a car guy, if you could be any vacation, because this was Ruba's. Ruba wanted to answer
Oh,
this
okay.
better.
Well, that's much.
Vacation, where would it be? Money, no
That's
object.
a, that's a long list. Right now, since you're on the call with me here, I would love to spend 3 months in Turkey. That would be high up there.
Mm,
Would love to spend 3 months in Argentina slash Chile, going through Patagonia, Buenos Aires, down to Ushuaia.
yeah.
So down in there, I'm a little in love with the cities of Mexico. So Mexico City, Oaxaca, Guadalajara,
Nice.
Colima. There's too many to list. Yeah. The car, I moved to urban Seattle, so we walk everywhere, and I'm happy with less car, no car.
Nice.
And what about music?
What would I be embarrassed of? So I've been
I'll
learning
tell you
Spanish.
mine. Mine is Barbie girl. I'm a Barbie
Well,
girl in
that's
a
not
Barbie
embarrassing.
world. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I like to
I've
sing it.
been I've been learning Spanish for the past 2 years, so my Spotify is 100% Spanish. Um,
Nice.
so maybe some of the super pop stuff like Sebastian Yatra from Encanto.
I don't know
Nice.
that one, but I'll have to look it up.
Nice. So as we come to a close again, thank you again. If you had to summarize this like decade journey of partnering, working at AWS and partnering at AWS, you had to whittle it down to probably your three greatest hits, or, in this case, like three big rocks, lessons learned. Like, what do you think those are?
Yeah, so one is product is vitally important and probably the
Yeah.
most important thing, like product alignment.
Yeah.
Um, the second is co-sell is hard. That what AWS is best at is providing intel when they're strong. That's it. If AWS says we're going to bring you lots of business, that just has not been my experience. A third one, I think I'll leave it there.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's no wrong answer, and both of those are like incredibly true and hard. That co-build stuff is, I think it's the long tail. It's super powerful, really hard to do. And you're right. You've actually said a lot about selling with AWS and expectation setting and, rejecting AOs. Those are, nothing wrong. That's everyone's got their own perspective. So, with that being said, I thank you again. It was awesome to have you.
Yeah,
Some
thank you so
amazing
much.
insight. The feedback on the CAD Academy is great too. No, thank you again for joining us today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
anytime.
and thank you for everything and kicking off 2024 for us.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you.